Hello everyone, and welcome to AustCham TV's Business Connections Community, an online program that keeps you updated on what's happening in the Australian Thai business community. In today's episode, it's all about opportunities. First, in our business section, we look at opportunities for Australian businesses looking to expand into Thailand. For our connections, we venture north to the beautiful Chiang Mai to look at opportunities up there. And finally, in our community section, we have a sneak peek at AustCham's CSR Committee's new initiative, Computers for Causes. Stay with us. Welcome back. In our business section today, we're looking at opportunities, specifically opportunities for Australian businesses coming to Thailand. And for that, we welcome Michael Helleman, Senior Trade and Investment Commissioner at Austrade. Michael, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Brendan. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure. So, Michael, I obviously work quite closely with you, and a lot of our members, of course, know about Austrade, but not everyone knows in deep detail what you do. Can you give us a deep dive into your role and your team's role here in Thailand?
I certainly can. So Austrade stands for the Australian Trade and Investment Commission, and we're a federal or Commonwealth agency that supports Australian businesses who are exporting into the Thai market, in this case Australian businesses that are looking to invest here, Thai investment into Australia, and also the Australian education sector, which in a Thai context means, for example, supporting the return of Thai students to Australia and creating partnerships between our educational institutions. But our core work in this market revolves around helping Australians succeed in exporting to Thailand and supporting Thai investment into our market.
Excellent. If I could just segue a little, you mentioned education as a key sector. Education, of course, took a massive hit over the past couple of years. How is that going now?
Well, it's pretty clear to everyone that both Thailand and Australia took a similar approach to managing their international border over the first 2 years of the pandemic. And that meant, for example, that we saw some students who were enrolled in Australian universities and commenced their studies online here in Thailand. It, of course, has put pressure on enrolments all over the world for international students as families face tightened economic circumstances. But very pleasingly, we're starting to see a strong return in Thai students to the Australian market post the reopening in December. And interestingly, we saw a lot of innovation over the course of the pandemic with several virtual tie-ups between Thai education institutions and Australian universities, for example, that allowed students to commence degrees in Thailand and then head to Australia when borders open. So, as with other parts of the economy, we've seen a lot of innovation to try and protect that market share.
Excellent. And it's so important to the relationship, isn't it? Because it's not only the economic side of the students going in, it's also that relationship, the people relationship of having Thais live in Australia, learn the Australian way, and then come back to Thailand and, of course, become part of our alumni as well.
I completely agree, and those people-to-people links are fundamental to the overall success of the relationship, and we see that through the membership of the Chamber.
You sure do.
And the incredible Thai alumni that we work with through the Chamber, including our newly elected President, Kun Lat.
Of course. Going deeper into the Thai market and that bilateral economic relationship, can you provide us a snapshot of that?
So Thailand is overall is about Australia's 10th largest trading partner, which is obviously a very significant relationship for both countries. Mm-hmm. And it underpins a sort of whole range of really key products and services. So Many of the cars that are driven on Australia's roads were made in Thailand. It's very much a two-way relationship, and any trip to a Thai supermarket will see, an incredible range of Australian food and beverage products. So it really spans everything from auto to food and beverage. And importantly, we've seen quite sophisticated investment in both directions as well. So a company like Ratch, which is an incredible Thai energy business, is actually a very significant renewable energy investor in Australia with both solar and wind assets. So it's quite a complex and deep trade and investment relationship, but we certainly think there's an opportunity to do more. And at the moment, we have the advantage of some pretty deep trade architecture that sits around that relationship with things like TAFTA, the Thailand-Australia Free Trade Agreement, RCEP, which has recently come into force, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and of course our existing ASEAN FTA, and all these pieces of trade architecture just provide a bit more competitive advantage for products moving in both directions between both economies.
Excellent. So specifically for our Australian exporters, you mentioned the format is there, the platform for expansion is there. What are some of the key opportunities? What's hot for Australian exporters?
Well, I think one of the things that we wouldn't have predicted is the way that Thai consumer patterns have evolved during the pandemic. So we know this is one of the great street food and outdoor eating destinations in the world. It's also a very sophisticated high-end food country. But what we've observed is more Thais, including here in Bangkok, cooked at home over the pandemic than ever before. And if you were looking for high quality beef or salmon and you were prepared to take a bit more risk and experimentation in your cooking, as many Thais have done over the last couple of years, Australia was providing probably the best value and best quality products in those segments into the Thai market. So one example of a hot opportunity is just evolving consumer demand, whereas we might have seen the tourism trade and high-end restaurants as the predominant drivers of, say, high-quality Australian beef in the market before COVID. That's now a big retail story with middle-class Thai families cooking at home. It's just one example of how demand for our products has held up incredibly well and indeed grown despite the pandemic.
That's interesting. I know over the past 2 years, two of the more common words we hear across every industry and every business is to be agile and to be ready to pivot. And so keeping an eye on trends that have come out of COVID and taking advantage of that has been really important for the success of all businesses.
No, I completely agree, and we've seen it in our own work. And while borders were closed and we were doing our core work of supporting Australian exporters into the Thai market, the work that our business development managers did, which ordinarily would have involved a physical visit to Thailand and a connection to, say, a citrus importer, all that work moved online, and it meant that the relationships that have been built over many years by our BDMs in their networks in different sectors of the economy were really important and allowed us, like everyone else, to pivot into working digitally. So I think innovation even in our business has been important too.
Excellent, good to hear. And you did mention you've been super busy over the past couple of years with inquiries into the Thai market increasing.
Yeah, and I think that it reflects a few trends. I think there's recognition in Australia that Thailand is a sophisticated market that, for example, here in Bangkok includes really an incredible amount of wealth. So we all know that if you look at the Greater Bangkok region, its GDP per capita is equivalent, to a developed country in some ways. So there's huge buying power here in Bangkok and in other parts of the country. And I think there's also just, a willingness amongst Australian exporters to explore opportunities here, particularly as they look to diversify. And if there's been one lesson in many sectors out of the pandemic, it's been the importance of diversification of your markets. And I think we've seen that driving demand into Australia as as many different types of businesses look to diversify their global markets.
Excellent. So, Michael, if our audience would like to learn more about how Austrade can assist, we're just putting the website up here now for you to see more information. If you're in Thailand and you'd like to meet Michael, Michael is an ex officio director on our board and is at most of our events, including Sundowners. So pop along and say hello.
So look forward to meeting you here in Thailand, digitally or elsewhere, and the very best to all of AustCham's members. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Michael. Good to see you. Coming up next, our connection section, and we head up north to see the beautiful Chiang Mai. Stay with us.
Dollarsmart Global is the leading Asia-based payments business. We offer flexible online solutions for locally collecting money and making payments to bank accounts, cash payout agents, and digital wallets across Asia. With Dollarsmart Global, your money's in good hands. Visit dollarsmartglobal.com to set up your collection and payment solution in Asia today.
Welcome back. For our connection section today, we venture north to the beautiful city of Chiang Mai to meet one of our silver sponsors and an AustCham director, Dwight Willis, CEO of Dollarsmart Global. Dwight, how are you?
Good, thanks, Brendan.
Now, I say venture north, but you're actually sitting here with me. It's more the conversation's going to venture north to look at the opportunities up in Chiang Mai.
Sure. It's a pretty rough period in Chiang Mai at the moment with the forest fires and an opportunity to get down to cleaner weather in Bangkok. But not often I get to say that.
Not often we get to hear it either. But before we delve into Chiang Mai, Dwight, let's have a look at Dollarsmart Global. You've built a successful business up there. Can you tell our audience in a little more detail about what you do?
Yeah, sure. The business was formed in 2013 off the back of a personal problem, which was the cost of moving money from Australia to Thailand. And myself and two other co-founders established the business. And we started off enabling our customers to remit funds from Australia to Thailand. And we've been doing that business for the last 7 years now, and we're roughly 20% of the marketplace. So if anybody does need to remit money, whether you're an individual or corporate from Australia to Thailand, look at www.bartsmart.com. In the intervening period, we've also got ourselves licensed in Hong Kong. We have a license application underway in a few places in Southeast Asia at the moment. But we've also morphed into more of an international e-commerce payments company. So we're processing thousands of payments and collections from Europe, US into Asia today.
Wow. So across any country across the world?
Pretty much from Europe and the US, I'd say, through Hong Kong and then into Vietnam or into Thailand or Australia. And everything's built, it's a completely online company, a fintech company as people would know it.
Excellent. And we're just flashing up now the Dollarsmart Global website for you to take a deeper look. Now, another point of interest for you, Dwight, is that you did decide to set up the business in Chiang Mai. Can you tell us why you made that decision?
Yeah, sure. So for both personal and business reasons, personal was my wife or ex-wife is from Chiang Mai. And we wanted to have a base in Chiang Mai. The other co-founder, a South African gentleman who I'd been trying to hire into a bank I'd been working at for 7 years, he was also based there. And we also had access to 7 universities in Chiang Mai who were graduating students on a regular basis. So it's been a great place to build a workforce and to build a business.
Wow. So having that access to talent is obviously a good benefit. Are there any other benefits that come with setting up and running a business up there?
Yeah, sure. And as an online business, it really didn't matter where we hosted the business, right? We could have been anywhere. So we chose a location that we personally wanted to live and also where we could get access to the talent in the company. And we have about 25 young Thai graduates working for us these days, as well as a smattering of international people, foreigners working for the company today.
Excellent. With Dollarsmart Global as a silver sponsor, we've been wanting to do this for a while, but we've spoken to Dwight and said we need to bring the Thailand's premier networking event, Sundowners, up to the north, up to Chiang Mai, and we've confirmed to be on Friday the 13th of May.
Yeah, confirmed for the 13th of May at
sure is.
At probably Chiang Mai's premier hotel, the Anantara, right?
Oh, it's magnificent.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place right on the river, in the centre of town. The 13th of May will be in Chiang Mai just as the rainy season starting, and the weather will be beautiful up there that time of year. And you know, I'm being really honoured to represent the Chamber up in Chiang Mai and beginning to grow our membership base up there.
You certainly have. So Dwight does wear two hats. Dollarsmart Global is a sponsor, and Dwight, as a director, as mentioned earlier, I can let our audience know that we have doubled our membership base over the past few months, just on the excitement of Sundowners returning to Chiang Mai. So that's a real positive for us and the region as well. Sundowners, of course, and prior to Sundowners, we're also going to do a briefing on what we've been talking about, the benefits of setting up a business up in Chiang Mai.
Yeah, correct. And you know, I'd welcome any of the members or anyone watching this video to come up to Chiang Mai, look at establishing a business up there. You know, you asked me the questions before, but there are other reasons for establishing a business. You know, the cost of living up in Chiang Mai is far cheaper than in Bangkok or in other locations. Within half an hour, I'm in the mountains, access to, you know, sporting activities, and for me, I kind of summarise Chiang Mai as kind of a smaller version of Bangkok, right?
Yes.
You get basically, you know, 90% of what I can get in Bangkok, I can get in Chiang Mai at a far kind of, hopefully a cheaper price, but also more conveniently than what I can down here. So.
Excellent. And I'm glad you mentioned sporting activities, because we've also been chatting offline about having a game of golf on the 12th of May prior to the Sundowners. So is that invitation open for everyone?
Yeah, that invitation is open for everyone. We'll announce some details a bit closer to the date, but anyone who loves golf, please come up to Chiang Mai and play with us on the 12th, and we'll pick one of Chiang Mai's premier golf courses. And I'd also welcome, we purposely put the Sundowners event on a Friday so that you can bring your families up, or come up by yourself and spend the weekend up in Chiang Mai. And you know, I'd be happy to kind of give a guide as to my kind of favourite places in Chiang Mai to spend the weekend. So. Fantastic.
And Dwight can also provide a guide. It's a well-known fact that Dwight rarely flies. He travels quite often between Chiang Mai and Bangkok, and he drives every time. So you know the quickest and easiest way to get and where to stop, etc.
Yeah, a few hidden locations on the way. The best Thai food on halfway up the road on the Ping River in Tak, yeah, as an example. But driving also gives me the opportunity to have some personal time to think. And when did I drove down last Saturday, and I was almost crying because the Roosters lost to Newcastle, and I was listening to it on the radio. So I get an opportunity to listen to a lot of football.
So Dwight's Roosters in Collingwood, he may be crying quite a lot this year.
I think so.
Dwight, thanks for that. We're going to flash up the details of Chiang Mai Sundowners that's coming up on the 13th of May as well. Everyone is invited. If you'd like to know more about Dollarsmart Global, doing business in Chiang Mai, or our Sundowners up there, Dwight's often at our events down here in Bangkok and other locations as well. Make sure you say hello to him. Dwight, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. Been enjoyable.
Okay. So that's Dwight Willis, CEO of Dollarsmart Global and a director with the AustCham board. Coming up next in our community section, we look at the CSR Committee's newest initiative. Stay with us.
I'm Marcus Blackmore, and Blackmore's is a name you can trust.
Welcome back. In our community section today, we're meeting a couple of dynamos from AustCham's CSR team. I'd like to welcome John Cannon and Joanne Buttons from the AustCham CSR Committee. How are you, John and Joe?
Good, thank you. Very good.
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
And you bring with you exciting news, because if you go back to last year, AustCham's Care Package initiative was an amazing success. We reached nearly 3,000 families countrywide. Our members, importantly, really reacted well to the initiative. this year we have something new. Can you tell us about it?
Okay, we're going to do computers for causes. So we knew that from the success of the COVID care packages, we had a lot of learnings, and we got some really good kind of feedback from members who wanted to help but couldn't quite make it financially. So like between the CSR committee, Sarge, Andrew, Peter Emblin, Joana and I, we brainstormed out the next phase, which is computers for causes. Joana was telling me that she's got 4 iPads sitting at home. What else have you got?
I've got 3 computers. I mean, we sat down and we started thinking about and talking about, look, there are people who can't financially support.
Yep.
What do we have in our businesses? What do we have in our homes? What can we give back and maybe repurpose? So we looked at sustainability,
Yep.
we looked at ways that we could help, we looked at our big pillar in the CSR, which is education, and really trying to help that, So we thought, who could we help through education? We thought, why not get all of our old computers, all of our old laptops, and repurpose them
Yep.
for computers for causes.
Yeah, and we've got a few other names to go with it. We've got Stationary Success coming, but the main one for this year is Computers for Causes. We looked at how to do this. From a logistics side, it is a big piece of work, and we don't have a big enough team. We'd probably need another 20 volunteers, plus Brendan would probably need about another 5 office staff just to do this.
Our staff will have to load up.
We've got the Mirror Foundation, who we went out and we did a lot of research online to see who is doing this, because we know somebody's already probably done something somewhere. So we went out, talked to quite a few different charities, and the Mirror Foundation stood out there, one of the oldest kind of well-established NGOs in Thailand. They're across Thailand as well, so it's not just a Bangkok hub. They deliver to schools in Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, Phuket, Songkhla, they're all over Thailand. They're an amazing organisation. We've been out to see them twice now. They're staffed by, they've got a big homeless people project where they try and get people back into accommodation, trying to help their children. So they've got schools on site. The ex-homeless people now have a salary so they can get their own accommodation, and that's done through donations.
So the former homeless people are now repurposing computers.
Yep.
Oh wow, what a great
So
program.
they repurpose computers, stationery, school books, clothes, sports equipment, literally anything that you've got in your house. That's another project. We could probably take it out there and they'll find a use for it. The day that I was
They
there,
do all the work.
Yeah.
They literally get all the homeless people and they give them an opportunity to do some work
Wow.
and give back to the community, and they repurpose pretty much everything that we give them. And we thought a good starting point was computers, and that they can repurpose it at all the iPads and all of the computers that we have in our businesses.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now we're just flashing up the Mirror Foundation website here on our screen now, if you'd like to know more information.
Yeah.
You mentioned, similar to what we did last year with the care packages, countrywide, and the Mirror Foundation are working countrywide as well. Can you tell us about the extent of what we'll be doing with this project?
So we're going to go out to our kind of the 4 main hubs again. So we've got Bangkok, obviously central location, Chiang Mai, Eastern Seaboard and Phuket. So we'll have the 4 collection points there. Everything comes into one central point. One of our logistics suppliers, Linfox, who we all know, will pick everything up from these locations, bring it back to Bangkok, to the centre. Then over about a 2-month period, the team there will repurpose everything. If something's, it doesn't matter how old it is, they can take it, use that part into another computer, then we'll kind of ship that back out. They've got schools that they know that need this equipment. So we'll work with them to kind of highlight those schools, and then we'll have that all going back out across Thailand. So yeah, our 4 main hubs is kind of the area at the moment.
And like John was mentioning, it's about going back to the schools. It's about giving back to the underprivileged schools and really looking at ways that we can support our education pillar. How do we repurpose the computers, and then it goes back to the underprivileged communities in Thailand where they can learn about computers, learn about technology, learn about the digital world, and get a better understanding of digital and technology, which I'm really passionate about.
Because we know that's the way the future is. Everything is going online.
Yes.
So these kids need to be schooled up and educated enough to be able to walk straight into a business, know how to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint, internet. It's a day-to-day tool that we all are so familiar with, but then
and we take for granted.
We
take for granted all the iPads that we have in our homes, where these children have never seen an iPad before or an app. Yeah. So it's been able to take all the things that we love and are dear, and being able to share it with someone else who's never had an opportunity.
And the distribution of the opportunity, really, to make sure everyone has that opportunity at education.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. So what are the next steps?
Okay, so the next steps, we've got our dates coming out for each area across Thailand. So we'll kind of go out. So we can't all do it on the same day. So there'll be 4 different dates across the month of May where we do the collection. Then that'll all kind of come back, and then it'll go quiet for a little bit while we kind of get all the equipment done up, and then we'll kind of share again once it's all going back out to the schools. And then we'll have a second run later in the year, because we know that businesses do different things throughout the year. You might be talking to somebody in another business, because this is that whole thing of community. You put it onto your LinkedIn or your social profile, someone goes, oh, can't make it for this one, but... So we'll have 2 runs of it this year, throughout the year, but it's stay tuned for May. We'll be back out to you with dates and locations for the drop-off.
Well, we will have, as we always do, we will have events, of course, in Bangkok, Eastern Seaboard, coming up Chiang Mai and Phuket all in May. So ideally we tie this initiative in with our world-famous AustCham Sundowners events as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. And once again, just what are we looking for? What are the items they're looking for?
Desktop computers.
Laptops.
iPads. We need your mouses, your keyboards.
Any hardware.
Yep.
Like, it could be really, really ridiculously old, but like we mentioned, they're going to repurpose a lot of this stuff, and if they can't use it, they'll sell it, and they'll be able to give more money back to the schools. But it's just really, really incredibly important that whatever you can give, look at your back office stock area, because I've got one and I've got so many computers there. Just look and scrounge around, and if you think you were going to throw that away, give it to us. Find the location in the drop-off centre, and we'll be able to do something with it and help people.
Because that's a bit, it brings that sustainability part back, where yes, we know that I've got a laptop which is probably 12 years old. They'll be able to either repurpose like a microchip, or as Joana said, like they might be able to sell part and then buy a bigger processor for another laptop which needs it. So it's they're amazing. They don't let anything go to waste. If you get the chance to go to the Mirror Foundation, their storerooms are just phenomenal. Like how they do this and the passion that they've got, they're amazing people. So it's humbling and inspiring to see them do this.
And we take your junk away from you. It's like a win-win situation.
Give Jo a call. She might even go out and pick it up directly off you.
I'm not sure how strong I am, but I might. I might too if you give me a lot of them.
That's why we have Lynn Fox to do all that heavy lifting anyway. Excellent. So keep an eye out for that email. It will come out soon with more details and looking at collection in May and a further timeline to go out as well. A big thank you to Jo and John from AustCham CSR Committee. And just one more point of note, we also congratulate John Cannon on being elected to AustCham's Board of Directors at our last AGM. So congratulations, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you for voting for me.
Excellent. Awesome. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. And that's our show for today. I'd like to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.